One of my favourite movies of all time is Fight Club. Fight Club just seemed to have everything. Great characters, great visuals, the cathartic release of violence. You had Tyler Durden, one of the coolest characters ever, and the narrator. A very, very relatable character. By the way, I'm just going to call the narrator Jack from here on in, just to make it simple. I know his name is Sebastian in the comics, but everyone calls him Jack because of the way he refers to himself.
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
I should also say from this point on, spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie and come back to me. Now, I remember watching Fight Club for the first time. We were watching it on VCR, and I was with a few friends. And when the twist came, my mind was blown. Now all my friends started saying, yeah, I saw that coming. And I was like, yeah, I definitely saw that coming, 100%. I'm smart enough to see that twist. But I sat there silently with my mind blown. Jack and Tyler were the same person the entire time. Now because I rented the VCR, I watched it again the next day. And... oh, there's my cat. The next day, I rewatched it to just see those little clues. It was so obvious in hindsight.
Hello?
Yes, this is Detective Stern.
One of the first things that really blew me away was just this little scene with the bottle.
We should do this again sometime.
You see later that Jack actually broke the bottle. But how do they tie that up in the previous scene? Tyler breaks it. There's also this other great scene where Jack and Tyler, they're arguing in the car and there's two men in the back seat. Now you realise when you're rewatching it, the men could only hear one part of the conversation, so how does that make sense to them? Then Tyler reveals that he blew up Jack's condo.
Why do you think I blew up your condo?
And it cuts the men in the back seat. That's why Project Mayhem had so many recruits. Tyler blew up their condos, they had nowhere else to go. Now when rewatching Fight Club to make this video, I found this other great little detail. Jack promises Tyler 3 times that he won't speak to Marla about Tyler.
It's 3 times you promise.
And then Jack goes on to break it 3 times.
What are you getting out of all this?
What?
Tyler isn't here.
Yeah.
Marla, it's me.
Have we ever done it?
You broke your promise. I asked you for one thing. One simple thing.
Another thing about the movie is there's so many great fan theories out there. One of them being, is the movie really happening? Is it all in Jack's mind? Jack does have issues distinguishing what's reality and what's fantasy. He's also not a very trustworthy narrator. And the movie starts inside Jack's head. Also, Paper Street. Paper Street is literally a street that only appears on paper. Cartographers would often use paper streets just so they can figure out if someone was copying their maps. Another great fan theory is, does Marla exist? I mean, she only really talks to Jack throughout the movie. She also seemed to just walk in and out of traffic, and she does kinda dress like Tyler. They both look like they stuck their hand in the wardrobe and just put on whatever they pulled out. But I personally do think that Marla does exist, because other characters do acknowledge her. It also ties up the ending a little bit better. Why did members of Project Mayhem bring Marla to Jack? Because Tyler planned to kill her.
She knows too much.
The movie also had a massive cultural impact. It did inspire real-life fight clubs and vandalism, but it also started a conversation about what really is masculinity. What does it really mean to be a man nowadays? I remember as a kid, I thought that when I become an adult, I'm gonna be amazing. I had all these dreams about all the freedoms I'll have, and I'll be a man. I'll be someone tough. Now, I don't know when I actually became a man. I mean, technically 18, but I definitely wasn't an adult when I was 18. Women go through so many different changes. Men just kind of get taller and hairier. I'm still a kid. I still have action figures. Jack is such a relatable character because he's the everyman. And the everyman questions whether he's really a man. He's a lonely guy and he feels like he doesn't have any purpose. You get the idea that he hasn't fulfilled any of his dreams, yet he's just trying to get by the best he can. And to try to fulfill that loneliness, he impulsively buys stuff. He works for $1 billion company, helping them make billions, yet he sees a very small percentage of that money. And like most people, he's addicted to a screen. The reason why we're all addicted to screens these days? We just don't want to have to think. But even though Jack is suffering, society doesn't deem him as a victim. Now, the way he gains acceptance is by lying. He goes to groups of people who are suffering more than him and pretends to be like them. He lies just so he can claim victimhood, and he no longer feels alone when he's accepted. Then we have the other side of Jack, Tyler Durden. Now, Tyler Durden, he came off as the ultimate alpha male, the great leader, the person you just have to admire. He is the man with a plan. Tyler rejects convention, and he seems confident in any situation he's put in. That's what makes him so charismatic. I know myself, I can be very charismatic when I'm in my safe space, when I have complete control. But the second I step out of that safe space, women laugh at me. But what I think a lot of people miss is that Tyler is actually not an alpha male. He's what Jack thinks an alpha male is. He's actually a very classic alpha male that you see in the media. Someone who comes across as strong, confident, they know what the best thing to do is, but they're also full of contradictions, just like Tyler. Tyler says that men don't need women.
I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer we need.
Well, he sleeps with Marla. He rejects the idea of having a purpose.
Never be complete. Chips fall where they may.
Yet men follow him because he gives them purpose.
In Tyler we trusted.
He talks about men being slaves to corporations.
God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables.
While treating the men in Project Mayhem like they're slaves. He laughs at models, well, looking like a model. The whole plan of Project Mayhem was to get rid of all the men's debts. And that way, we're all equal.
Out these windows, we will view the collapse of financial history. One step closer to economic equilibrium.
Yet Tyler, and in turn Jack, do show off a bit of wealth and power. An alpha male is basically, do as I say, not as I do. As a side note, I did try to look up what a real alpha male would be. And I kept getting Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. Aragorn wants what's best for the future, has unshakable conviction, and conducts himself with humility. But he's only successful because of the universe he's in. A more realistic alpha male would be Eddard Stark. Eddard is also humble. He wants what's best for the future and doesn't compromise his values. But sometimes you have to compromise your values if you want to survive. And Eddard found that out the hard way. Before I get on to the core of the video, I do want to ask, if you've got time, please like and subscribe to my channel. I know it's cliche, but I do want to be a full-time YouTuber, and just making enough money to support my family, my wife and my cat, and any future members of my family, that'd be an utter dream for me. But now let's get to the core of the video. What does Tyler represent? Now I believe that Tyler represents Jack's fear of death. Jack is a recall coordinator. His job is to decide whether it's much cheaper to just let people die in faulty cars and then get sued. And I'm sure that plays on his mind. It's his fear of death which keeps him up at night. And unconsciously, to cope with it, that's when he starts becoming Tyler Durden. When he finds people facing death or deaths, he no longer feels alone and his fear of death starts to wane and Tyler goes away. Then he can sleep again. But then Marla comes, a character that doesn't fear death and just starts reflecting his lie. That's when Tyler starts kicking back in again. Jack first meets Tyler after he imagines a mid-air collision. Because Jack does fantasize about death, but he fears facing death alone. So that's when Tyler comes into the picture. Then Jack feels like part of himself has died, when he loses his suitcase and then his condo. And that's when he reaches out to Tyler again. And him and Tyler start Fight Club. Part of the thrill of fighting is that you don't know if you're actually going to survive it. There is that chance of death, and that just thrills Jack. Now Tyler then forces a car to crash, making Jack face death head on,
This must have been what all those people felt like before I filed them as statistics in my reports.
The problem is, it was Tyler who made that decision, not Jack. And Jack is just not ready to face death alone. Yet, Tyler still leaves him. Then Jack has to face the death of his friend Bob. And that's when he starts the hunt for Tyler. And how does Jack finally get rid of Tyler? By facing death on his own terms, and by shooting himself in the face. Most people wouldn't survive that, yet somehow Jack did. And that's how Jack finally was able to leave Tyler.
What's that smell?
That's why I think at Tyler's core, he's Jack's fear of death. This is actually not the reason why I started making this video. Actually, a very different idea. I wanted to make a 2024 version of Fight Club. I wanted to update Fight Club. I wanted to come up with my own cast. I wanted to come up with some new themes, and I wanted to go into how my version of Fight Club set in 2024 would differ from the original. But during my research, I discovered something quite sad. You see, the reason why Fight Club is such a good movie is because it's still relevant. The main themes of economic disparity.
We're not killing anyone, man. We're setting them free.
Companies are making billions while workers are making less. Loneliness. We are now in a loneliness epidemic. Screen addiction. Everyone's more addicted to screens than ever before. Excessive consumerism. In the olden days, you'd have to go to a store, or you'd have to ring a number on a catalogue to get something. Nowadays, we can just drunken impulse buy from our phones. So, I realised, why should I bother giving it an update? It is still so relevant that anything I do would just be tweaking something, and if it ain't broke, why fix it? Now that being said, doesn't mean we can't do anything with the Fight Club universe. I would really like a prequel miniseries. Jack has been Tyler for at least 6 months before the movie started.
For 6 months, I couldn't sleep.
What about narcolepsy? I nod off, I wake up in strange places, I have no idea how I got there.
Jack suffers from dissociated identity disorder. That normally comes from childhood trauma. Maybe we can have some flashbacks to Jack as a kid. Maybe we can see Jack on 90s internet, looking up a very popular cookbook, which was all around the net at the time. Maybe we see Jack looking at a magazine and seeing a picture of a model, and he starts fantasizing about what it would be like being that model, what kind of life that model would have had. Then we get the triggering incident. What brought on Tyler? What brought on Jack's fear of death? Maybe as a recall coordinator, he sees something which brings his fear of death to the forefront. Then we start seeing Jack becoming Tyler, taking over Paper Street and starting up the soap business. And we'd also see some of the other characters. Maybe we can see Bob trying to reconnect with his children and failing. Maybe Marla could be looking after an elderly neighbour. We could also have an Angel Face cameo. So there is still a lot we could do within the Fight Club universe. But that being said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe an updated version of Fight Club set in 2024 would be interesting. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to make a small video about what I would do if I was to update the movie. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm David Basson. I hope you enjoyed.